Well, we are following the last journey of Dr. Manmohan Singh. Those pictures are from the Congress headquarters before it moves across to Nigambodh Ghat, where he's going to be given the final rites with full state honor at around 11:45 a.m. We have Mr. Upadhyay, Tushar Gupta, senior journalists, my colleagues, of course, Ananya Bhatnagar and Siddhant Mishra, getting us all those details and analyzing the journey of Dr. Manmohan Singh. I'm just going to come back to all of you, so please hold on, but we've got many reactions coming in from the ground. There are many voices about Dr. Manmohan Singh. Let's listen into them.
Already, Manmohan Singh has made it very clear before he died that the media and the opposition party will have to remember him. Every part of every single citizen of this country has to remember him on whatever the works he has done for the country. He has done on a giving on rights through the constitution. So of course, that is the need of the hour. I hope a good mind will prevail upon them and give whatever the request of the Congress party.
देखिए, एक महान देशभक्त कहेंगे कि जिन्होंने अपनी ज़िंदगी एक बहुत छोटे से घर से उठकर और अमृतसर रहकर वहाँ कॉलेज से पढ़कर और आगे आकर पंजाब यूनिवर्सिटी में टीचिंग का टीचर लगकर उन्होंने देश का नाम ऊंचा किया। मेरे ख्याल में एक पगड़ी वाले को यही श्रद्धांजलि है कि 2% लोग जो हैं हम हैं, उनका एक बहुत बड़ा लीडर आया और उसने पूरे वर्ल्ड में अपना नाम सिखों का खास करके पगड़ी का, जो कहते हैं पगड़ी कभी झुक नहीं सकती, उन्होंने पगड़ी को उठा कर रखा। और मेरे को अफसोस इस बात का है कि उन्होंने आज उनको जगह नहीं दी जहाँ होना चाहिए था। संस्कार जहाँ प्राइम मिनिस्टर जिसने पूरे वर्ल्ड में हिंदुस्तान का नाम किया, ये मेरे ख्याल के पगड़ी की तौहीन है।
Okay, those are those pictures which we are seeing from the AICC headquarters. Tushar is with us. Tushar, you know, the reluctant Prime Minister, the accidental Prime Minister, and I think he used to get a little upset when this was constantly told to him that you're silent, you're mourn, you don't speak much. There have been those moments when he has asserted himself, and I'm talking not just about the Indo-US nuclear deal.
You know, Pallavi, I remember back in 2004, I was probably in class 3 or 4 and I had little interest in the current affairs. And when Manmohan Singh's name propped up, for us who were the 90s kids born after liberalization, we did not have a fair idea of his achievements. And slowly and steadily it came to us that, okay, this is the man who's led India into the LPG reforms a couple of decades ago, and this is how he's going to lead the country. There was a certain sentiment that, okay, this is the man who's going to lead the country. But somewhere as a politician, he left a lot to be desired, but as an economist, his achievements were always unprecedented. His economic thinking, his policy making, he used to assert himself there. That was actually his terrain. But on the political end, of course, he left a lot to be desired, but he had the party's trust. Before anything, before even his own stature within the party, within the government, it was the Congresses and the party's needs that he used to serve, and he served them quite well.
And you know, for example, the ordinance issue, I'll ask Mr. Upadhyay that. Remember that tearing up of that ordinance issue? there was no public spectacle within the party after that. Dr. Manmohan Singh, I think, was in America at that point of time. But when he came back, Rahul Gandhi goes to meet him. And no matter how much we as journalists would provoke Dr. Manmohan Singh, he refuses to speak about it publicly. That grace, that gravitas, is that what also you think is very much a part of him?
Absolutely. I think, anybody else in his position would have felt insulted and embarrassed by the kind of action that Rahul Gandhi took, a very immature action of his. Of course, I think he had a moral point on that. There's no question about that. But that was not the way to do it. I mean, he could as well have waited for the Prime Minister to return to the country, discussed it, and made the government withdraw it, not he himself, taking the situation in his hand. Whatever it is, I think the way Manmohan Singh reacted to it, and even the whole party, they didn't make it a big issue out of it, and was all resolved quite amicably. But it was a most embarrassing moment for the Prime Minister. And I think in his some memoir I read, that was one occasion when he wanted to resign. He did approach Sonia Gandhi saying that, I don't feel like continuing anymore. But he was persuaded to continue as a Prime Minister.
Okay, let me just go across to Siddhant as well. Siddhant, his mortal remains are still at the AICC headquarters. The funeral rites, I'm told, is going to be at 11:45. What more arrangements? Because we are told, of course, the Prime Minister, the Speaker, the Vice President will be there, and of course, a Defence Minister. What kind of sanitization or process is there? Do you think there are going to be people who are going to be allowed as the cavalcade moves into a Nigambodh Ghat?
Well, it looks very unlikely, Pallavi, given the kind of sanitization which is going on right now inside and outside Nigambodh Ghat. In fact, you could see this is the main gate of the Nigambodh Ghat. The cadets have been deployed on both sides of the entry gate. Then I could also see the RAF teams, the other paramilitary forces on the gate, and this entire area has been cordoned off. The extra teams of Delhi police are on ground, perhaps guarding this entire area from AICC headquarters to Nigambodh Ghat, because Delhi police is expecting many people, many Congress workers and those who admire Dr. Saab to join him in his last journey. So we could expect a procession to be taken out from AICC headquarters to Nigambodh Ghat. So there could be a possibility of traffic disruption in the central Delhi area. And because of which only the precautions are being taken, and in fact, the NSG teams have also been deployed. Since Gandhi family is also special protectee. So given that, there could be a lot of VIP and VVIP movements as well, because the chief ministers and the other central minister dignitaries could also come or perhaps could join the procession. But as far as the schedule of Nigambodh Ghat is concerned, the notification that the Defence Ministry has put out, Pallavi, according to that, from Home Secretary to Defence Secretary, Chief of the three forces, Vice President, Prime Minister Modi, and President Draupadi Murmu, they all will pay homage to Dr. Manmohan Singh, and after which at around 11:45, the mortal remains will be taken for the final religious rites. So Dr. Manmohan Singh will be accorded with full military honors, and in fact, you could see, I could see the young, cadets, and I could also see the senior officials from all the three forces at the Nigambodh Ghat. Their contingent, their teams have started. Some of them have already arrived. Some of them are still arriving, assembling outside Nigambodh Ghat. So it's going to be the full military honors for Dr. Manmohan Singh. And in fact, yesterday, Pallavi, late in the evening, Ministry of Home Affairs asked Defence Ministry to start the preparations. And since then, the preparations have been going on in and around Nigambodh Ghat. In fact, the senior officials from the Delhi police, the local authorities are also on ground to do the final review of the preparations. So we could expect at around 11 a.m. the mortal remains to reach Nigambodh Ghat. It will not get delayed, perhaps not beyond half an hour, because the schedule of the VIPs have already been made public. So there is very less possibility of delay. We could expect mortal remains to reach at around 11 a.m.
And in fact, we have those details also. And one of the first ones who's going to arrive, of course, is going to be the Raksha Mantri, Rajnath Singh, because state honors. And then, of course, there's going to be Prime Minister, there's going to be the Speaker, the President and the Vice President, according to the notification which has been accessed by CNN News 18. Let me just go back to Mr. Upadhyay. There were those key reforms, those political decisions and economic decisions. I know this much because we reported about him. He was not very happy with the idea of, say, a food security bill, because he felt that while it could be good politics, it may not be great economics. But that's what the job of the PM is, to reconcile the party's wishes with your government. You think he learns this towards the second term? Would you say that?
I would like to go a little, before that.
Okay.
I mean, as a finance minister, his contribution was much bigger, I would say, because he was the one who was able to abolish, the license and permit Raj. It was the first time in the country that kind of decision had been taken, and FDI started coming into various sectors which were completely closed, and then selling of the shares of the government companies. These were all very big decisions which were taken by Manmohan Singh, and of course under PV Narasimha Rao's leadership. But but for those.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Upadhyay. I'm sorry. I really have to interrupt you here. We are just going to come back to all of you because we have a special guest this morning, the former Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Mr. Ranil Singh. Thank you very much for speaking to CNN News 18. I have been seeing your memoirs. I have been seeing your tributes which you played to Dr. Manmohan Singh. When was it the first time that you met him, and what was your first impression about him?
The line is not clear.
Mr. Singh, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I was reading your tributes. When was the first time that you met Dr. Manmohan Singh? And in fact, what was the first impression that you were left with when you immediately met him for the first time?
I met him for the first time in 1992. I called to meet Prime Minister Narasimha Rao. I was the leader of the House, and Minister of Industries had introduced the second generation economic reforms. When I met Dr. Manmohan Singh, firstly what struck me was that he was not a politician. He knew his subject, he was cool, he was calm, and he had the ability to steer the Ministry of Finance through the vast reforms that were taking place. My discussions with him was firstly on how we opened up in Sri Lanka, the reactions we had, and I said yours are going to be much worse because the Congress government's, Congress party's affiliation with many other left-wing groups and with the trade unions. And secondly, I also told him how I have brought in the second generation of economic reforms and the problems that were associated with it. He appreciated it. He asked me a number of questions, and I left with the impression that a very thoughtful person who's worked this out and who was determined to stay it through. When we opened out in 1977, President Jayawardena had Mr. Ronnie DeMille as his finance minister, and he also took a similar approach. So I was really heartened by it. I met him again the next year when I visited India again after I became Prime Minister, and he briefed me on the progress that was taking place. So I said, look, we must all try and work together to bring these reforms.
But Mr. Vikramasinghe, he was also very aware of the fact that India's neighborhood will also have to be our friends, whether it's Sri Lanka, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's Bangladesh. When you would meet him, would he talk a lot about the fact that apart from the rich legacy and history Sri Lanka and India shares, about other countries in the neighborhood? I mean, for example, Afghanistan, which was new, which was on this path of change a bit, Mr. Hamid Karzai becoming the head of the government over there, Bangladesh, Pakistan, because we had a tricky relationship. Would you talk about that also with you?
No, when I met him next, I was really no longer the Prime Minister, I was the leader of the opposition. And he had become Prime Minister. That was about after they won the elections in 2004. I'd met him earlier, but on those occasions I was in the opposition and he was in the opposition. Then between 2001 and 2004 I met him together with Mrs. Sonia Gandhi. There the interest was more on the issue of the peace talks. But he spoke with me about Sri Lanka's economic positions, where we had a negative growth in 2001. But thereafter, when I met him as Prime Minister, he would generally talk about the war and the aftermath of the war, the political solution, the question of the displaced people. Those were the issues that were foremost on his mind. After 2015, when I became Prime Minister and I was taking on the new reforms and also the discussions we had with the IMF, then he would ask me on and off questions about what we were doing. He used to come together with Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, and his questions and discussions were about the economic situation in Sri Lanka.
The economics of his, which we often talk about, and the finance minister and the liberalization that he spoke to us about, but and also his diplomatic skills. If you would be able to tell us a bit about that, because I'm sure you met him many times and you both must have discussed the need for countries, especially in South Asia, also to assert themselves in the world economy and the global stage. We should not be looked upon as third world or developing countries. Would he talk about that to you as well?
Yes, the need for South Asia to open up and become strong economically. I mean, he and I both agreed our real problem was economic weakness, and that was due to the outdated policies we followed. It was how we were going to bring it in. For him, he had to bring it through the Congress party, as I said earlier, which had different wings, and the allies who were not that supportive of the reforms. So he had that problem. But basically, we felt that there was a lot of potential in South Asia and the surrounding countries. It was a question of how do we tap it. Once you do it, the rest could be worked out.
And also, Mr. Vikramasinghe, today he leaves behind a legacy and the rich tributes that he's getting even from his political opponents at one point of time. What is the legacy for you personally and for Sri Lanka and for our country and the world that he leaves behind as he sets sail on his last journey?
He left behind a stronger India, and what I admired of him was the need to have economic reforms. Now, Sri Lanka started in 77, we were standing alone. But once he came in, India came in, then Bangladesh followed. I mean, this is long after China opened up and even Vietnam. So we had to get there. His contribution was in opening out the economy. The decision was taken by Mr. Narasimha Rao, but the strategies was put in place by him. If the strategies were wrong, it would not have succeeded. And it was carried on, as I said yesterday, by Mr. Vajpayee and then again by Dr. Manmohan Singh as Prime Minister. And you made a very strong economy. And now under Prime Minister Modi, you are looking at becoming one of the top 3 global economies. If you did not do that in the first budget speech, you won't be talking today of becoming one of the top 3 economies in the world. That's why it has worked out in 3 decades. So I would say Dr. Manmohan Singh was instrumental in putting the strategies into place. Without this, you could have fallen. Very, very sound strategies on which you could carry it out. And then at the same time, he looked at the other aspects also, like the social needs, the poverty, and the different legislations he brought in. And of course, addition to the economic reforms, when you are looking at this region, he had one more achievement, which is a civil nuclear agreement. And that really took India to the next level.
And the last question to you, Mr. Wickramasinghe. He's known to be a man of few words, but was it very difficult for you to strike a conversation with him?
No, I had no difficulty because we talked on topics that both of us like to discuss. I had no problem at all with him. He was measured in his words, I would say, and I appreciated that.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Wickramasinghe, for speaking to CNN News 18 and sharing your thoughts of Dr. Manmohan Singh. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Well, we are going to continue to track the last journey of Dr. Manmohan Singh as we leave you with these pictures of his family and all the top Congress leaders who have been and not been a part of his cabinet. News continues over here on CNN News 18.